Hey, shout out to all of our subscribers and members here on the channel. My name is Reese Waters, and I'm troubled.
You're telling me you had a nurse that you knew was harming newborn, like neonatal infants, and you put her back on the floor? I hope these families sue fucking everybody. I hope you sue everybody. And you know, I used to get really defensive when people would say that nursing is the equivalent of cops for white ladies, but I get it now.
That's Nurse Lex, and she's talking about 26-year-old Erin Strotman, a white nurse in Henrico County, Richmond, Virginia, who was arrested for intentionally breaking the bones of 7 black babies in the NICU. And what Lex said at the end of this video resonates with me pretty hardcore. It's also why I was so interested in going into health law when I was a little girl. I've told y'all that I grew up pretty sick. From the age of 2, I was constantly in the hospital, damn near grew up there. And I have seen so many racist practices firsthand in the healthcare system. And so I just want to remind you that when we talk about black maternal and infant mortality, at the core of it is racist practices within healthcare. Like Lex said in this video, what nursing is to a lot of white women is what policing is to a lot of white men. And at the core of the issues that we have and how black people are treated in both systems, it's racism.
So after seeing something like that, I posted on social. I couldn't wait to amplify this because so many people needed to see it and hear about it. The one thing I was looking for was confirmation of the racial angle to these crimes confirmed by some of the news sources that cover this kind of thing, or any news sources for that matter, and it never came. That's why we're a week later. I kept seeing content that mentioned that they were black babies, but none of these articles and media would mention that there were black babies. Now, I do understand that when you have victims that are minors, then there's some privacy that comes into play. And certainly when it comes to things that happen in a hospital, there's some privacy that comes into play. And I certainly respect that. I also will acknowledge that it gives you a certain amount of cover in a case like this when that kind of crime is alleged. But ultimately, I decided that it was too important to not say something for a couple of reasons. One, we know that racism is very much still alive. How could we possibly come out of 2024 without having to accept that fact?
Greeting, David. You've been selected to pick cotton at the nearest plantation in Atlanta. Be ready at 12 a.m. sharp with your belongings.
David Williams reads the alarming text message he received after the election.
Master Ben asked us to send out this text message. Please be ready, and we won't be whipped. And I replied back, well, you better tell Ben I'm not my ancestors. I whip and shoot back.
And this is one arena where black people are extremely vulnerable when it comes to the infiltration of racists into these spaces. They were right to make the connection to police officers in the video I played at the outset. So this is something that we all need to deal with. Now, as far as the facts of the case, they all read about like this. Newborn babies at a Virginia hospital have been suffering mysterious injuries. A nurse now faces abuse charges. Dominique Hackey was waiting to cradle his preemie son for the first time when a nurse delivered devastating news. The newborn's left leg was fractured. In an instant, Hackey's world shattered. His wife had just been discharged after giving birth to fraternal twins, Micah and Noah. The boys, born in September of 2023 at Henrico Doctors Hospital in Richmond, Virginia, are the couple's first children. Because they were born at 28 weeks and weighed only about 2 and 3 pounds respectively, the twins had remained in the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, with Micah barely hanging on. And now, 7 days after birth, the healthier twin's leg was bruised and broken, he said. I was confused and heartbroken. I'm a first-time parent. I have no background in the medical field. You're telling me my baby has a fracture. How did it happen? They had been scanned before, and they'd have said something if anything had popped up at that time. Out of fear he would be blamed for that injury, the 33-year-old Hackey said he turned down the offer to hold his son that day. Now, as many aspects of this are so infuriating and, quite frankly, disgusting, I'm just imagining making the choice not to hold your son for fear that you would be blamed. You already have to process your son's pain, but you add on top of that the very real reality that you, as the father and also as a black man in America, become a very convenient place to go to scapegoat just about anything. More than a year later, Hackey and other parents may now be closer to understanding what happened in the hospital, which has reported a series of mysterious injuries to newborns over the past several years. Police last week arrested a former nurse at the hospital, Erin Elizabeth Ann Strotman, and charged her with malicious wounding and felony child abuse in a November 24 incident involving another newborn. Investigators are now looking into a total of 7 potential abuse cases at the hospital, 3 in 2024, 4 in 2023, including Noah's, said Shannon Taylor, the Commonwealth's attorney for Henrico County. In a statement last week, Henrico Doctors Hospital said it was shocked and saddened by the nurse's arrest and is assisting Henrico police in their investigation. At this time, we're not admitting new patients to our NICU. For babies needing NICU care, we'll assess them, stabilize, and facilitate a transfer to an appropriate facility once available. I could not stop the tears from flowing. I have a lot of guilt, a lot of regret, and a lot of anger that the hospital let it get this far, that we have all these parents whose children were affected, he told CNN. My son was one of her first victims. My son's first emotion was pain, and as a father, that breaks me. One more time. I have a lot of guilt. I have a lot of guilt, says the father of the son that was allegedly abused at the hospital that they entrusted to take care of him. He feels guilt. It's unclear whether Strotman, 26, issued a plea at her arraignment. Her attorney, Scott Cardani, declined to comment when reached by CNN. One thing we haven't heard her expressing any guilt, which we heard from Hackey. Henrico County police investigators said they're scouring hundreds of hours of surveillance footage from the hospital's NICU to determine what happened to the 7 newborns. The investigation is ongoing and there could be more babies identified, Taylor told CNN. The incident added to an already stressful pregnancy and delivery after 2 previous miscarriages. The couple chose to have their babies at the hospital because they believed it had the resources to save their children. Once again, asserting just how vulnerable we are in circumstances like this. At one point, he said they were not sure Michael would survive due to his health issues, including low amniotic fluid before he was born, but Noah appeared to be thriving and the family was hopeful. Not long after Hackey left the hospital, he called his mother, who's a director of nursing at a different hospital. She was stunned, he said. The hospital had suggested that Noah's left tibia, the shin bone between the knee and the ankle, may have been fractured while a nurse was administering an injection, he said. His mother sat the couple down and showed them how nurses administer shots to preemies to highlight the unlikelihood of broken bones. Hackey's mother then called the Child Protection Services on their behalf and reported the case. Now, just imagine, because, what are the chances that his mother worked in this capacity and understood the unlikelihood of their explanation? Where we might be. Just imagine where we might be. Because he had no reason to disbelieve what they told him. I don't know that I would have a reason to disbelieve what they told me if I were in that situation. The hospital launched an investigation but closed it weeks later after concluding the fracture was likely a result of the injection. Right. In January 24, Henrico County Police reached out to the Hackey's family and notified them that the case was closed. Now, we've heard a lot about black patients in the hospital not being treated for their pain, with the implicit bias that we have a higher pain threshold. We've heard about the implicit bias that people might be trying to secure substances for nefarious reasons. Take all of that into account when it comes to their complaint and the conclusion that it was in fact the result of the injection, despite the unlikelihood of that reality. A police spokesperson declined to comment, saying they cannot provide specifics due to the ongoing investigation. We understand the feelings and emotions this investigation has generated for our community members and beyond, said Eric English, the chief of police. We kindly request patience as our detectives work to investigate every piece of evidence in connection to these cases. And I would imagine probably give yourself some cover for the dismissal of the claims which were raised long before some of these other babies ended up injured. After Strotman's arrest, the hospital issued a statement Friday describing her as a former employee and saying it'll continue to assist law enforcement in their ongoing investigation. We're both shocked and saddened by this development in the investigation and are focused on continuing to care for our patients and providing support to our colleagues who have been deeply and personally impacted. For more than 30 years, the NICU at Henrico Doctors Hospital has provided necessary and life-saving care to babies in Central Virginia, and we remain focused on ensuring the availability of that care in our community. By the way, the injured infants are all boys. For months, Hackey said there was silence. Now, again, I told you that I was unable to find more media sources to highlight the racial angle of what has been alleged, but here we do get the confirmation that they were in fact all boys. In September this year, Child Protective Services sent him a letter informing him its investigation revealed that Noah was a victim of abuse at the hospital. Shout out to Child Protective Services. A review of the facts shows a preponderance of the evidence that child abuse/neglect occurred, said the letter. Last month, Hackey said he was surprised to see a news article about prematurely born babies injured at Richmond Hospital. One newborn suffered numerous injuries on different months. To say that we're blessed that our son only sustained one fracture is a crazy sentence. And yes, it absolutely is a crazy sentence. Hackey said the victims included another boy who was a twin like Noah. In a statement Tuesday, Henrico police refuted theories shared on social media that all the infants targeted were black. The preliminary investigation indicates this information is not factual. Hackey agrees. The children were different races and there were twins and singletons. There was no real methodology there that we can put together. The only thing they have in common is that they're all boys. Parents recall a nurse who barely stood out. The Hackey twins are now 16 months old and hitting their developmental milestones. Their father said Noah is rambunctious, while Micah is more mellow, introverted, and observant. He glances at Noah's antics between watching YouTube educator Miss Rachel and munching on peanut butter puffs. The Hackeys are slowly learning more details about what happened to Noah and the other children. After speaking with several families whose children were allegedly abused in 2023, Hackey said he's learned his son was the third of the 4 victims identified that year. One incident occurred in July, another in August, and 2 in September, including Noah's. The former nurse arrested is not a stranger to the family, Hackey said, adding that he remembers her mostly because of her hairstyle. She wore bangs. He added that he didn't notice anything unusual about her at the time, and neither did the other families he's spoken to. Now, here's a part that I want to highlight too, because I understand you work in this capacity. You see families, you see people, you see fathers all of the time. You don't necessarily take note of them, but let's not ignore the allegation of engaging in this kind of behavior with someone's child who you have met and interacted with. Not just that it is as innocent as human beings can be in a newborn baby, but you actually know and have interacted with the family of that child. When I saw her face, I was completely shocked because I don't really remember having any conversations with her, he said. On the day Strotman was arraigned, some of the families of the alleged victims met for the first time at the courthouse where they shared tears and hugs. Hanky said they've been working on connecting the dots and trying to heal. We found that it's easier to heal together than to try and go through this individually, especially because there's still a lot of missing pieces, and we just kind of have to piece it together ourselves. If found guilty, Strotman faces a maximum of 10 years in prison for the felony abuse charge and up to 20 years for the malicious wounding charge, said Taylor, the county's Commonwealth attorney. Maybe that's for one case. Maybe that's for one case. I don't want to see this person ever in open society if found guilty. Obviously, we'll go through the process. But if this person, no. I mean, we got a lot wrong with our criminal justice system, but if somebody who engages in this kind of behavior, victimizing people who have entrusted them with their care, tell me what's worse. Strotman has so far been formally charged in just one baby's case as investigations continue. In the other cases, Hackey said the baby's parents were told that investigators have found surveillance footage of the November 24 incident for which Strotman was arrested and are combing through the videos for others. She is being held without bail. Her next court appearance is scheduled for March 24th. I want to see her go to prison for the rest of her life. That's the least that she deserves. And that is church. That is absolutely church. Now, in that article, they refuted the racial angle of this, but I want to bring that back around because whether or not there was a racial angle to this particular case, one of the things that highlights not only the vulnerability that we have in situations like this, when we understand that these kinds of people are out there who would seek to do us harm, number one. But number two, the already existing disparities in the healthcare system for Black people. When I posted this on social media, the amount of people that work in the healthcare field who talked about the fact that they see inequities and negative outcomes befall Black people unnecessarily on a regular basis. And we don't even have to go far. Let's keep it with pregnancy and postpartum women. How about that? Black pregnant and postpartum women and people experience stark racial disparities in birth outcomes, 3 times more likely than white women to die of pregnancy-related causes. Black infants are more than twice as likely as white infants to die before their first birthday, more likely to have preterm births, low birth weight births, or births for which they receive late or no prenatal care compared to white women. Black women and people who receive pregnancy-related care late in a pregnancy are not at all, and those who receive racially biased care are at an increased risk of pregnancy complications, more likely to be admitted to the intensive care unit during delivery compared to white women, 2 to 3 times more likely to die than white women who had the same 5 medical complications that are common causes of maternal death and injury. And just in case you were wondering if this was a class issue, if maybe the wealth inequality accounts for these differing outcomes, how about this? More likely to experience problems during pregnancy and birth, even when they have higher education and income levels. Black women with a college degree had worse maternal and infant birth outcomes than white women who never graduated from high school. Less likely to receive routine medical procedures and more likely to experience a lower quality of care. Studies show that having a Black doctor care for Black women and people with their Black babies results in fewer deaths of Black infants. But what are we doing to try and make that a reality for Black patients? Oh, anti-DEI legislation. That is That is exactly what we are doing. How about this article? Racial bias plays a role in maternal deaths. This comes from the Maternal Mortality Review Committee. There are a multidisciplinary committee in states and cities that perform comprehensive reviews of deaths within a year of the end of a pregnancy. Members have reported that bias and discrimination play significant roles in contributing factors leading to maternal deaths. Now, you guys remember Serena Williams's health scare recently? Well, when she first recounted how she struggled to get medical attention after developing complications following childbirth, her experience seemed like an aberration. How was it possible that one of the world's top celebrities was initially ignored by her healthcare providers when she told them something was wrong? Well, newly released research from Stanford's Petra Pearson and Maya Rossin-Slater finds that Williams's harrowing encounter with the U.S. healthcare system reflects a stark reality for many black women. Whether they're rich or poor, black mothers and their newborns of all income levels do significantly worse health-wise than their white counterparts. The disparities identified in the study of California births was so large, in fact, that black women and their infants of the highest income households, meaning the richest among us, fare worse on average than the lowest income white mothers and their infants. This from Rossin-Slater, an associate professor of health policy at the Stanford University School of Medicine. We hear stories like Serena Williams's and tend to think of them as exceptional, but our data suggests that's not true. In a society that still suffers from structural racism, our research indicates that policies only addressing economic drivers of disparities are likely not enough to close racial health gaps. Like, how about this one? Babies born to black mothers in the top 5% of the income distribution are 1.5 times more likely to be preterm and of low birth weight than infants of white mothers in the bottom 5%. At the end of the day, we have alleged crimes that were absolutely disgusting. And yes, that is irregardless of the identification of the victims. But as this first came across my desk, it opened up a conversation which we need to continue, because there's no reason why there should be such a laser focus on specific aspects of our society, like, say, law enforcement, and how racial bias can be so problematic there, but not in the healthcare field when we already see these pre-existing inequities. That is a conversation that absolutely needs to continue. Of course, that is if closing these inequities and making all Americans feel safe when they go into the hospital is in fact the goal. Unfortunately, I don't know that it is. And that is why I'm troubled. Hey, I want to thank you guys so much for supporting the channel as we approach a new administration and the changing winds of our media landscape. I want to invite you to join my channel. I think it's very important to preserve a space and a platform where I can communicate clearly and honestly, as all of our creators are hoping to maintain. Unfortunately, it looks like that ground may be evaporating right underneath our feet. So I wanted to let you know I'm going to continue to post on my channel, but I'll also be posting more in the membership section as well, so we can have clear and honest conversations. You can find the button to join right there on my page. There's also a link in the description box to all of my videos. I also want to invite you to join my mindfulness and meditation channel. That's my second channel. It is Way of Waters, because we gonna need it. We gonna need it. I might wear that thing out by the midterms.